Debt does not care how responsible you feel. Debt only responds to patterns. And right now, without knowing it, you are running patterns that guarantee your balance survives every payment you make. This is not about discipline. This is not about income. Every habit in this video belongs to people who pay their bills on time, show up to work, and still cannot close the gap. 8 patterns are running underneath your finances right now. Most people can identify one. Almost no one sees all 8. And the ones you cannot see are the ones doing the most damage. Debt is not a math problem. Debt is a behavior system, and behavior systems do not break when income goes up. They expand to absorb it. That is the thesis. Everything that follows is the proof. The first pattern is this. You are financing a life your income cannot actually support. Not a lavish life, a normal one. Rent, groceries, insurance, a dinner out, a subscription renewal, none of it feels excessive. None of it announces itself as a problem. But at the end of every month, the balance is higher than it should be, and the reason stays invisible. Credit fills the gap between what your income covers and what your lifestyle costs, quietly, automatically, without ever presenting itself as a decision you made. Growing debt starts inside ordinary spending. The $340 insurance payment that landed on the wrong week, the $90 medical copay, the $45 software renewal you forgot was annual. Each one charged, each one carried, each one accruing interest at 22%. A $340 charge carried for 8 months does not cost $340. It costs $390 for something you consumed months ago and no longer have. Multiply that pattern across 12 recurring charges in a year, and you are paying between $400 and $700 annually just to sustain a life you already paid for once. The gap is not between what you earn and what you spend. The gap is between what your income can actually afford and what your credit card is silently subsidizing every single month. The second pattern runs directly underneath the first. Credit card debt does not shrink because the card has become the primary financial tool, not the emergency backup, not the rewards vehicle, the primary tool. Groceries, gas, bills, subscriptions, all cycling through one account all month, and at the end of the month, the comfortable portion gets cleared. The rest rolls forward. Here's what rolling forward actually costs. A $6,500 balance at 22% APR, paid at $200 a month, takes 3 years and 8 months to eliminate. Total interest paid, $2,900. The original $6,500, groceries, a car repair, a few dinners out, ends up costing $9,400. Those purchases are long gone. The payment is still here. Credit did not make those things affordable. Credit sold them on a silent installment plan and never showed you the final price. Debt at the minimum payment is something you are not fighting. It's something you are renting. The third pattern is the one that makes the first two invisible. Most people carrying a balance right now cannot accurately account for where their money went last month. Not approximately, accurately. They can name the 3 largest expenses. They cannot name the $1,200 in annual subscriptions no longer being actively used. They cannot reconstruct the $600 in dining that registered as $300 at the time. They cannot see the $380 in friction spending, delivery fees, convenience charges, last-minute purchases made because the alternative required effort. Untracked spending is not reckless spending. Untracked spending is invisible spending, and invisible spending is what keeps income arriving and balances surviving. The average American household leaks between $300 and $500 per month in unintentional, unexamined charges. That's between $3,600 and $6,000 per year. Applied instead to a $9,000 debt at 22%, that debt clears in under 2 years. Without that awareness, the same money funds the debt indefinitely. The income was always there, the visibility was not. And this is where it gets worse.
The fourth pattern is the absence of a budget, not because people are careless, but because budgets have been misunderstood as punishment. A budget is not a restriction on spending. A budget is a record of what you have already decided matters. Without one, spending does not become free. Spending becomes governed by feeling, and feeling always overestimates what is left. Here's what feeling-based spending looks like with real numbers. $3,400 arrives this month. Rent takes $1,200. Car and insurance take $520. That leaves $1,680. It feels like enough, By the 22nd of the month, $940 of it is gone in a direction that cannot be fully reconstructed. 11 days remain. Something unexpected costs $200. The card absorbs it. The balance that was supposed to fall has climbed instead. That is not a willpower failure. That is what happens when you navigate by feeling inside a system that runs on numbers. The budget is not the discipline. The budget is the map. And driving without a map does not mean you drive freely. It means you arrive somewhere you did not choose. The fifth pattern is the one most people believe they have already solved. Debt maintenance is not debt elimination. Making the minimum payment every month feels like engaging with the problem. It is not. It is paying for the right to keep owing the same amount. On a $7,000 balance at 22% APR, the minimum payment runs approximately $175 per month. Of that $175, roughly $128 goes directly to interest. The principal drops by $47. At that rate, the debt survives 11 years. Total interest paid exceeds $6,000 on a $7,000 original balance. The debt nearly doubles before it disappears. Debt maintenance is an active cost, not a neutral position. Every month at the minimum, $128 is spent purchasing another month of debt. That money builds no equity, creates no asset, and produces nothing. The minimum payment was not designed to help you exit debt. It was engineered to keep you inside it as long as legally possible. Knowing that changes what the minimum payment actually is. It is not progress. It is a subscription to the balance. The sixth pattern is running right now on accounts you have not checked recently. Compound interest does not require new spending. Compound interest requires only an unpaid balance and time. A $4,200 balance sitting on a card at 24% APR, not being actively used, not being actively paid, grows by $84 in month 1. Month 2, interest charges on $4,284. Month 3 on $4,369. After 12 months with no new purchases, no new charges, no activity at all, the balance is $5,290. $1,090 of new debt, generated entirely by doing nothing. Debt does not wait for you to engage with it. Debt grows whether you are watching or not. And the accounts most likely to compound silently are the ones that feel least urgent: the card with no recent charges, the loan with a low minimum, the balance that has been sitting in the background while attention went elsewhere. Silence is not safety. Silence is compounding. The seventh pattern is the one that makes the sixth inevitable. Without an emergency fund, every unexpected expense becomes a debt event. The $800 car repair, the $1,100 medical bill, the $600 appliance that fails in February. These do not go on a card because spending is out of control. They go on a card because there's no alternative. And each one adds to a compounding balance, extends the repayment timeline, and erases weeks of payoff progress in a single transaction. The math is not close. A $900 emergency drawn from savings costs $990. That same $900 charged at 22% and carried for 8 months costs $966. But the real damage is not the $66 difference in interest. The real damage is the momentum lost, the balance that climbed back, and the next emergency arriving before the account had time to recover. Without a fund, emergencies are not a risk to prepare for. Emergencies are a scheduled debt event. The only unknown is the date. An emergency fund is not a savings milestone. An emergency fund is debt insurance, and every month without one is a month this sixth pattern has permission to run unchecked. Now, the eighth pattern. This one contains everything that came before it. The belief underneath all 7 habits is this: more income solves the problem. A raise, a side hustle, a stronger month. If the number coming in were higher, the debt would fall and stay fallen. This belief is not just incorrect. This belief is the exact mechanism that keeps every other pattern invisible. Because as long as the solution feels like it is arriving, there is no urgency to examine what is already happening. Income increases without behavior change do not eliminate debt. They fund the existing pattern at a higher level. Lifestyle expands to meet new income within 90 days. The $2,200 apartment becomes $2,800. The $35 dinner becomes $55. The one subscription becomes $4. The debt, which briefly felt manageable, drifts back to the same ratio relative to income because the behavior that built it was never interrupted. The income changed, the pattern did not. Research on lottery winners makes this concrete. Within 5 years, the majority returned to approximately the same financial position they held before the windfall, not because they were reckless, because behavior does not change with the deposit. The pattern outlives the income.
And if the pattern survives a windfall, it will survive the next raise, the next bonus, and the next better month you have been waiting for. More income is not the answer, because income was never the problem. The financed lifestyle, the revolving card balance, the invisible spending, the missing budget, the minimum payment that maintains instead of eliminates, the interest compounding on ignored accounts, the emergency that lands on credit because there is no fund behind it. Every single one is a behavior, not a number. A behavior, and behaviors do not heal when the deposit clears, they scale. Return now to where this started. Payments have been made every month, the balance barely moved. The reason is not the amount being paid, the reason is the 8 patterns operating underneath the payment, invisible, continuous, compounding, and entirely structural. Debt does not survive income, debt survives behavior, and behavior survives because it was never named precisely enough to see. If someone in your life is making payments and getting nowhere, send them this, not for motivation, for identification. The pattern has to be visible before it can be broken. The next question is not how to earn more. The next question is what changes the morning you accept that more was never the answer?